Thanks for joining us today. Just a quick reminder before we get started. This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional care. If you are in immediate danger or at risk of harming yourself or someone else, please call your local emergency number or contact a crisis line right now. Okay, so I've had about 17 failed attempts at meditating. I bought a candle, I downloaded a million apps, I even paid $60 for a sound bath, and the entire time I kept wondering if I locked my car if I didn't. So I'm not sure this worked for me.
Okay. And when I told Masha that I was going to actually use AI to guide me through some breathing exercises, she stared at me like I was some weirdo on a subway.
And as a psychologist, folks, what I want to say that quite often meditation, mindfulness these days is still seen as something esoteric based on spiritual practices and religion, and it's actually not the case. Yes, the roots of it are in religious and spiritual practices, but there is very real research behind mindfulness, and there are very specific reasons we will talk about why mindfulness is such an easy target with technology.
This is the AI Therapy Podcast, where we discuss mindful use of AI for self help. A consumer insights nerd and a techie are joined by a practicing psychologist to unpack when AI can be helpful, where it shouldn't be used, and best ways to interact with AI to get the support you need. AI Therapy Podcast: practical tools, real talk, and a mindful take on technology. Welcome to the podcast, everyone. Today we're talking about mindfulness. So let's start in a mindful way. Let's leave everything behind. Let's be in today and now. And today we will be breathing in and breathing out. And now we can get started. And as always, I'm going to get started with a couple of stats. So, first one, I'm going to read it out. Approximately 500 million people worldwide now identify as regular meditation practitioners. So, essentially, they practice meditation regularly. And that's up from an estimated 200 million just a decade ago. Just crazy how that number grew. And then another one, which I found really interesting, is in the United States alone, the percentage of adults who meditate tripled between 2012 and 2017 from 4.1% to 14.2%. So that's crazy. So we know, I think we all know mindfulness has really been one of those, I guess, buzzwords that everyone knows and talks about. But Nate, what is actually mindfulness? Because I feel like that's just something we say, but maybe not necessarily realize.
Well, I mean, one way to define mindfulness is actually to start by talking about what it's not. So, quite often people think that mindfulness is about emptying your mind. And it's actually not about emptying your mind. It's becoming very aware of what's going on in your mind. It's being able to take a distance from what's happening. It's not a religious practice. Yes, as we said, it has its roots in Buddhist meditation, but the clinical version of it, they are completely secular. So it's not something only calm, flexible, yoga doing people can access. Everybody can access mindfulness. So, if we think about clinically, it's basically simply an intentional, non judgmental intention to the present moment and teaching people to be in the here and now. Because what happens quite often with us in our very fast day and age, anxiety takes us far into the future, into impossible scenarios, unlikely scary outcomes. Depression or trauma bring us back into the past where we think and we still feel the pain from bad things that happened to us. So mindfulness is really about learning to be here and now.
Right, right. And I feel like this is maybe a tasteless comparison, but it's almost like, the stop and smell the roses. That's kind of what it is, right? Like I feel like Herrick and I often will go and like be having a meal, and during that meal we're already discussing like what our next meal is going to be, right? So you're just like rushing from one moment to the next moment.
Exactly. It's not a cheesy analogy. That is actually one of the most common approaches to mindfulness or introduction to mindfulness in a lot of religious practices. For example, when I was reading a book about mindfulness, or I think it was called Meditation in Kabbalah, so Kabbalah is a mystic teaching in Judaism. The first example, the first exercise was actually mindfully observing and taking in the sight of the rose.
Hmm.
Quite often, I've seen mindfulness being introduced through first eating a grape. So, where you're taught to take one grape at a time and really focus on taking that grape in, focusing on the sensations that come from the taste of the grape, the texture, etc. So, yes, observing or smelling or taking in the rose is a very real way of bringing yourself into the here and now.
Okay. I have a question. So, like you said, this whole thing around mindfulness has been around for a long, long time. And I remember back in the day, and not saying exactly how many years, but Masha and I have tried things, whether it's using an app to try to meditate, or we even one time went to what's that called? That
Oh, the
chamber
floating where you
thing
float on water?
where
Mhm.
you're in like a deprivation
Deprivation tank.
chamber. Yeah, where you're like in a locked chamber. It's dark. You don't see anything. You're floating in water, supposed to clear your mind. And there's all these different things to help you in so-called achieving this mindfulness. But I feel like back then it was like far and few in between. And you might have a friend or two that, says, "Oh, I'm going to a yoga retreat and doing some meditation or doing this and that." But I feel like now you hear that way, way more. And even in companies, they might have,
Apps or
yeah, the company might sponsor you and be like, hey, for health benefits, you might have access to certain apps or,
yeah, like
um,
I had Headspace, which
exactly.
was
So,
really
so those
interesting.
type
Yeah.
of things. So my question is really, why has this mindfulness thing kind of just exploded in the last, I don't even know how many years, but in the last while? Like, why is that?
There is so many different reasons, to be honest with you. I mean, if we are sticking with staying within the our domain here, is the digital accessibility. Mindfulness is so basic in terms of its core and so easy to learn, then digital platforms with very simple pre-recorded scripts can do an amazing job with introducing people to mindfulness. And it's so accessible to you, right? I mean, you really don't need any equipment, like literally. All you need is your body. Your main tool can be your breath or bodily sensations. That's the beauty of mindfulness. You really need nothing to get started. Well, and of course, kind of these days you have the apps. So you can download free apps also or
Right.
paid apps, but the apps are very popular and they've been really bringing it into the mainstream. Like you folks mentioned, corporate sponsorship of certain
Yeah,
digital
there's
platform.
Headspace, there's like Insight Timer, there's Calm, there's a bunch of them.
Balance,
Yeah,
so
there's a
on.
bunch of them that I've definitely tried.
Yeah, absolutely. So another reason is scientific credibility. Mindfulness is no longer just in the domain of spirituality or religion. Very deeply and extensively researched intervention in clinical and counseling psychology, and overall is so widely used in the helping field.
Mhm.
And there is so many studies, randomized control trials, etc., that confirm the efficacy of mindfulness. So scientific credibility is another reason. In MBSR or in many other approaches, some of the
Sorry,
first
what's MBSR? Walk us through
Mhm.
that.
Yes, MBSR, it's mindfulness-based stress reduction, and it was originated by John Kabat-Zinn. It comes from Buddhism teachings. John Kabat-Zinn didn't invent mindfulness, but he's been pretty successful into repackaging it, making it much more mainstream. He does give credit to Vipassana teachings, on which mindfulness based stress reduction is based. A lot of the techniques are from there. And I have experienced Vipassana meditation. So, Vipassana is something pretty intense. I mean, it's not what people usually think about when they think about meditation training. It's a 10-day silent retreat You take a vow of silence, so you actually don't talk for 10 days. And you meditate basically most of the day, 10, 12 hours a day. You don't talk. You are really, even when you're resting, you're just becoming aware of your body. So he has a number of studies in peer-reviewed journals as early as 1980s, 1990s, and that's where mindfulness started shifting from alternative health approach to
Hmm.
very much mainstream evidence-based intervention. By 2014, there was a paper, for example, that confirmed effects, making mindfulness comparable to antidepressants, and the credibility ceiling lifted entirely then. So, for the last 10 years, mainstream medicine actually prescribes those types of trainings.
So if people were to practice mindfulness and whatnot, like what can they expect in terms of the impact to their well-being or mental health?
I mean, there is a lot of very well studied and demonstrated benefits of mindfulness. First of all, it's decreased level of anxiety and depression. So there
So
is
how does
a
that work? Like, can you walk me through it a little bit? I'm curious. Like, how does that being in the moment helps you? I guess I understand a little bit because you mentioned it before, right? It grounds you in now, not spiraling forward. But can you talk to us a little bit from a clinical perspective? Like, how does that actually work? And what happens in
well,
the brain?
right, right. Well, I mean, think about it going back to the main idea of here and now.
Hmm.
Right. So, what quite often happens, I mean, and we will stick to simple examples here, like anxiety and depression. So, what happens with anxiety, as we've dissected in quite a bit of detail in our episode on psychoeducation? What happens with anxiety? Your mind is very much detached from here and now. Your mind is somewhere in the future, projecting quite often very unrealistic, catastrophic outcomes. As we said, sometimes kind of that are either have a fraction of possibility of happening or no possibility at all. They're just like pretty impossible,
Right.
right? So, what mindfulness does and how it helps in terms of the basics, what happens? You really bring your mind into here and now through mindfulness. So, from the future, from being focused on some unlikely outcome in the future, you're bringing it to the very real, immediate thing, such as your breath, which quite often is your anchor in a lot of mindfulness based practices. You bring it down to your body. Once again, you can't bring it even more to the here and now than the current bodily sensations you're experiencing.
Like true manifestation of how your body reacts to some of this. Like for instance, your heart rate might actually go down
As
and
you do the deep
yeah, as you
breathing?
do these
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
I've heard of things where I think it was what Navy SEAL or something along those lines. They do these type of exercises when they're in combat or something along in
Box
strenuous
breathing, to be
box breathing
specific.
for like
Yes.
strenuous situations. Is that an
Oh,
example?
yeah, absolutely. There are physiological reasons behind it. I mean, it's a way to send message to your nervous system that you're safe.
Mhm.
Because think about it in evolutionary terms. If you are because anxiety quite often, if you will actually start to practice mindfulness, you will see that if you sit down and try to become aware of your body during mindfulness session, if you are just feeling anxiety or high degree of stress or panic, you will see that you're breathing very shallow, very fast, right? Why is that? It's because from evolutionary point of view, your nervous system makes you hypervigilant. So this anxious thought make you feel like you're under attack, that you have to defend yourself. So your whole nervous system mobilizes itself and you're preparing to protect yourself. Kind of your breath gets short, your muscles get tense. You know how kind of anxiety and stress makes your muscle tense because you're preparing for a fight. But as you make a conscious effort to slow down your breathing, your nervous system starts to receive an explicit message. I'm safe. Because if I am purchased by a predator, I cannot do a deep breath. I cannot inhale for 8 and exhale for 12, for example, right? You would be breathing shallow and running. So that sends a very explicit message to our system. Okay, I'm safe in the here and now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I remember even doing, and maybe Nate, you could talk about this too, but I know that there is the vagus nerve, and that's the nerve that we need to stimulate and train, which can be done through breathing of shorter inhales, longer exhales, right? Which I think talks to sending that signal to the body when you have that longer exhale. Did some personal research before this episode.
Really impressed. I'm really impressed, Masha. This is kind of the very popular topic these days in our field, polyvagal theory. So some of the main ways of de-escalating kind of the stress response in your system, of working with and stimulating in positive way the vagus nerve, is through breathing, slowing down the breathing, boxed breathing. This is the fastest way. People call it as a shortcut to really calming down your nervous system. Quite often that's necessary before you're even doing any type of cognitive work, for example.
And we will do some of these demos
Yeah.
later in the episode. Like if you're not familiar with the box, what box breathing is, or 478 breathing, we'll demo some of them.
Right. So I was just going to paraphrase and make sure I got it in terms of the question I originally asked, where I was just saying, like, what are the type of benefits people can expect from doing or practicing mindfulness? It sounded like it was like well, in layman's term, twofold. One is the mental benefit in terms of not spiraling and just being able to calm down, be in the here and now. And from a physiological perspective, it's just really relaxing, not being as tense, and being able to be more in control of your body and like manifesting like calmness in that respect. Does that sound about right?
Yes, that sounds about right, but there is so many other useful benefits that that mindfulness can bring. So yes, anxiety and stress are probably some of the most common ones, right?
Okay, so this sounds like really good. Now, I wonder for our listeners and personally as well, how much time and effort do you need to take in terms of actually practicing mindfulness to reap the benefits?
You know what? This is a really good question because it really depends. And in this case, the beauty of mindfulness is sometimes even one breath or even one cycle of deep inhale and slow exhale might already significantly lower down the individual's stress response there and kind of shift their state into calmer state. But in terms of where to get started, probably 10-15 minutes a day for 4 weeks, according to Headspace Commission research, already results in significant reductions in stress, irritability, and improved focus. Studies done in Oxford University also show that there are significant improvements in, let's say, mood by just meditating 10-15 minutes a day for as short as a month, for example. And then, of course, if you want to have really long-lasting effects, something that's more sustainable, 20-30 minutes a day. And that might sound wild for folks now. So no need to be ambitious. You can start slow, even 5 minutes a day. If anything more than that feels too threatening or unachievable is already good enough.
Okay, so how does AI fit into all of this? So I'll take a first shot at this, but I think that, with technology and everyone has access, well, not everyone, but many, many, many people have access to a smartphone, a computer, and everything. And a lot of people are using things like ChatGPT. They have access at their fingertips to this type of material that can talk to you and can perform type of mindful exercises, and it's available 24/7. And as you've heard from our previous episodes, we can always customize it into certain personas that match you or speak to you in specific terms. And as we all know, they speak really nicely to you and usually say things in a way that you want to hear them. So it really helps in that perspective.
I guess it's like almost like just like a step up from an app, right?
Yeah.
You're literally customizing the app, so it kind of intuitively makes sense.
And it also helps you come up with the type of mindfulness exercise that might be most helpful for you in the here and now, right? So by asking you a couple of questions, what are you feeling? Is it emotions or sensations that you're struggling with? Is it distress? Is it anxiety? Is it the emotions like sadness or whatnot? It can tell you, okay, well, maybe it's better for you to sort of do some breathing practice to calm down your nervous system. Or maybe it's better for you to be observing your thoughts to see where your mind is wandering. Or maybe it's best to do some type of body scan for a deep relaxation.
Right.
Can you talk about, sorry, I just, as you were talking about this, the mind wandering. Like, I feel like this is my personal, like, pet peeve. The mind is always wandering. Like, this is my, I mentioned 16 attempts of meditation and they're all failing. Like, why does this keep happening?
Well, it's what our minds are wired to do. It's exactly why we have our brains. I mean, its focus is to constantly be assessing the situation and trying to make sure you're okay. So, mind is always active. I mean, even if we go back to the ancient teachings on which mindfulness is based. For example, when I was studying it in traditional places, I was taught that to see mind as a monkey jumping in the jungle, but just grabbing on from one branch to another, to another, to another. It's just what it always loves to do and what's it's supposed to do. So we cannot even get frustrated with the mind. And that's what we are learning to do through mindfulness based exercises to not be frustrated with our mind for wandering. What we learn is to maybe take some distance from it and notice it wandering and how much it's wandering today. And that's why AI is such a good fit because it doesn't judge you, it's very patient with you.
Right.
It sort of doesn't criticize you for not practicing enough. You can always come back to it and it will be ready to engage with you in non-judgmental manner. Another analogy that I was taught when I was doing my Vipassana meditation training was that to watch the mind as training a puppy, right? You know that puppy still doesn't know how to be in the world.
Mhm.
That puppy will always try to crawl away somewhere, get itself into dangerous territories, will do all kinds of difficulties. But we don't get impatient with puppies. We kind of expect them to do that, and we patiently, gently bring them back to the safe place, to the basket, and comfort them and observe them to make sure that they get used to healthy behavior, let's say. So, same thing with our minds. I mean, our mind will wander, always wander. And even the most experienced meditators are constantly dealing with this phenomenon. It's just what our minds are wired for. So, what we are doing there, we are gently and patiently, as soon as we notice our mind wandering, acknowledge it and bring it back to our anchor, be it our breath or be it our
Right.
bodily sensations. And that's basically the core of mindfulness. And AI is just perfect for that because it will keep on helping bring it back. I mean, and there is so many different ways to set it up to be most helpful for you and interactive.
That's awesome. I actually really like both of these analogies, the monkey and the puppy. Then again, who doesn't like monkeys and puppies? So, but I think they were great. Okay, I think this is awesome. We've covered kind of what mindfulness is, what it isn't, where it comes from. We've talked about the scientific and clinical benefits. Should we then maybe cover a couple of examples and do a few demos?
That sounds great to me.
Okay, amazing. All right, so first one, let's do a demo of 478 breathing. You'll see what this is now if you're not familiar with this technique yet. But essentially, I use the prompt that you'll have in the in the episode notes, and I essentially told AI that I want to try doing this. I told it that I'm anxious before a big work presentation. I only have about 5 minutes to do this, and I've never done something like this before, so I'm a total newbie. It opened with a check in, it kind of gave me an introduction. It also asked me to rate my stress and my mood. So I rated my stress at an 8 and I rated my mood at 4. And I kind of mentioned that I have this tightness in my chest and I've been carrying it all morning, like that discomfort. Yeah. This is the response that I got from AI. So we'll do it live and we'll work through it.
So yeah, here is the response that Masha got from AI. So I will guide you, Masha, through it, but using exclusively word to word what AI generated.
Okay, perfect.
Okay? Okay. Let's work with that tightness directly. The breath as a soft response to exactly what you described. Place one hand on your belly, right where that tightness sits. Breathe in a pattern of 4 counts. Hold for 7, release for 8. I will count for you. Breathe in 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathe out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Do you notice that area? Is it any different?
That was great. I mean, this is one of my favorite breathing techniques that I use already. And I do genuinely feel after about like 3 rounds of this, or quite frankly, any deep belly breathing, you kind of just like your shoulders drop, a couple of inches. You maybe like lose that tightness in your jaw. So I personally definitely value from these type of exercises. And after you complete the exercise, AI will check in with you. So we will follow up to see how your stress level and mood level is doing and where that tightness is in my case.
And yes, folks, this is kind of that part of the prompt where we ask AI to check in with us in the beginning of the exercise and after. Same practice you've seen in our first and second episodes, where we are explaining how important it is to see and monitor the changes that are happening for you, for your mind, for your body.
Perfect.
Okay, then for the next demo, I actually prompted the AI to guide me through a 3-minute body scan. And I specifically mentioned to it that I'm sitting at a desk and to use sensory non evaluative language.
Wait, sorry. Question.
Mm,
What is sensory non evaluative language? Can we explain to everyone, please?
A sensory non evaluative language is what we want to achieve during a mindfulness practice. So what that means, quite often we are trying to evaluate what we are feeling, or and people say, "Oh, you know what? I'm not feeling anything."
Right.
So and they say, "I'm not feeling anything." They think that they're doing something wrong when they're doing body scan, for example. And not feeling anything is still the response. You're aware of feeling nothing in that particular
Mhm.
body spot.
Okay.
Right. Right. So,
And that's
mhm,
okay too. Yes.
Right.
perfect.
And that's the prompt I used.
Perfect. Okay. So in this demo, I will be Herrick's
AI.
mindfulness guide. I will not be your AI, but I will be your mindfulness guide. So I'll read and guide Herrick through this demo. It will not be 3 minutes, but we'll give you a little taste. So bring your awareness to the soles of your feet, not to change anything, just to notice. Is there warmth, pressure against the floor, any tingling? Whatever is there is fine. Now move your attention slowly upward. Shins, knees, thighs. Feel the weight of your legs against the chair. No need to adjust anything. Just notice. If your mind moves to a thought, that's completely normal. Gently, the way you would pick up a dropped pen, return your attention to your body. First of all, how did I do?
Good.
Second of all, how do you feel?
I think it's just when you're very specifically like focused on one portion of your body, then it really kind of like hones in onto that. And you sometimes notice something that you're like, oh, okay, I didn't pay too much attention before. But it also makes me feel a bit more relaxed.
Right? So I think just bringing attention to different parts of your body already accomplishes something.
I really like the language, to be honest with you. It's so consistent with MBSR, the way you would pick up a dropped pen. That is AI modeling the non-judgmental return. That's excellent therapeutic language. Whatever is there is fine, taken directly from John Kabat-Zinn MBSR framework. I think the AI is doing great work modeling here.
Okay. So we've talked about all the benefits and we've done some demos. I'm sure everyone's excited to start.
Yeah.
But as we've said at the beginning of the episode, most of us have tried at one time or another and, either didn't find it successful or thought, air quotes over here, that we failed. Can we talk about some kind of the maybe troubleshooted, maybe some of the common barriers that folks like Herrick and me, who are maybe not very successful at mindfulness just yet, face? I guess the first one is, and I've brought this up before, which is very relevant for me, is, you know, my mind keeps wandering the whole time, right? And I think I'm not the only one. You probably will have a lot of people kind of having the same complaint, so to say. What do you have to say about that, Nate? I know maybe it's a bit of a repeat, but just to summarize.
Well, I mean, if you enter it in our prompt, what it will tell you, it will be very validating. It will say that every single person's mind wanders. It's not a sign you're doing it wrong. It's proof your brain is working. I love that wording. So that means that it's working really well, actually.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. For me, I remember trying some of this stuff and I came out of it and I was like, I don't feel anything different. Nothing seemed to have changed or happened. So did I do it right? Like, is this what it's supposed to be?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's once again, it's this evaluating mind that always is trying to sort of find the right way or to succeed. It's very Western type of approach to trying to do something, goal oriented, achievement oriented. And mindfulness is the opposite. It's just the process, it's the practice. And this is exactly kind of like the type of attitude, mindset that mindfulness teaches you to move away, right?
Mm.
You just acknowledge what happens. And some days, even if you're an experienced meditator, some days your mind will just keep on wandering more and more, and others it will be more still. So it doesn't mean that one day you had worse session and another day you had a better one. It just means that your goal is to observe and accept your mind as it is.
That makes a lot of sense. I guess the third one is slightly embarrassing, but I find that like half of the time I fall asleep. So, I mean, I'm still happy about it because I'm getting like a little nap out of it, but I at the same time feel I'm not really practicing mindfulness, so to say.
I mean, AI will definitely validate you there because it's such a common practice. I mean, in some way, and I tend to, for example, quite often fall asleep when I do full body scan, and that's why I do it cross-legged. But that means that your nervous system is getting relaxed, which is eventually what you're hoping to achieve out of it.
Right.
Okay. I was talking to my friend, and one of the thing that they mentioned was sometimes when they were trying to do some of these breathing techniques, they actually felt more anxious doing the breathing in itself, which seems kind of weird and counterintuitive to try to relax.
Yeah, this is actually not counterintuitive to a clinician who is doing a lot of trauma work. Quite often, it can be actually even more anxiety provoking for people to do mindfulness exercises, because think about it this way: if you had trauma, quite often your body is hyper vigilant, right? So that's why, for example, when I do this type of exercises with people who have experienced trauma, I normalize it. For example, at a lot of my clients, I check in with them. I always say, Close your eyes if it feels comfortable to do so. If not, maintain a soft gaze, and that's what our prompt would have to do.
Right. Right. That makes sense. And I guess the last one, is it normal to feel dizzy or lightheaded during breathing? It's good.
Okay, yeah, it is. It is absolutely normal. And once again, you should stop the exercise. Our prompt will tell you to do that if that's the feedback that you provide to it. Dizziness during controlled breathing usually signals hyperventilation. So as soon as you feel that, stop immediately, rest, breathe normally. Actually, if it persists, and sometimes I mean mindfulness will not cause it, but if you notice that, check in with a doctor, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
And this is, for example, another limitation of AI. Here, it lacks a real time monitoring.
That makes sense. This was really useful because ultimately it sounds like for the most part, everything most of us are experiencing is very common, very normal, and is not necessarily bad or counterintuitive. That's just how our brains work.
Exactly.
We've gone through some of the live demos, and I think it'll be awesome if you kind of give it a shot yourselves because I think you heard about all the benefits. So when you go into our show notes, you can access our prompt information, and we also created an app actually that will let you choose from different types of breathing techniques, and you can even choose things like ambient background noises if that works for you. The really cool part for me about this app and this technology is that it's gotten to a point where, as you heard from our other apps, like our other episodes, you can tinker with it, you can customize it to the point where you can even, record your own voice or choose a different voice profile that matches what you would prefer. So imagine you're a huge Star Wars fan and you want Darth Vader to be your voice coach. Maybe you can make that happen. But again, that's for the hardcore techies out there listening, but it's a possibility.
I think I would find Yoda much more therapeutic, to be honest.
Wow.
That's amazing. And honestly, it is really simple and it is really customizable. But if anyone is at all intimidated by doing this and tinkering with this, you really don't have to. Use our prompt, put it into your AI agent, and then just use the script to model the exercise for you, right? So if creating your own file sounds intimidating, you don't have to do that. That's just
Right.
cherry on top. Well, I think this was fascinating. Let's do a quick wrap up with a roundtable of key topics we've learned today.
Let's do it.
Okay, can I start? All right. So I think the one takeaway for me is, again, as a person who's tried this so many times, like AI is ultimately kind of like your infinitely patient friend who just like will never sigh, will never give you judgment, will never give you attitude for kind of maybe showing up or not showing up or dropping off, who's just going to be patiently there with you every time you attempt this.
My wrap up, I'll take a different stance this time, but I feel like what I'm learning through this discussion with Nate is that it's more like enjoy the journey and not the destination type of thing. So you're not rushing to a goal and being like, hey, if I did this mindfulness exercise, I'm going to feel infinitely better every single time. It's about repetition and doing the exercise, being there in that moment and that point in time. And that's the journey. And another way I'm thinking about it now, it's kind of like, everyone wants to be fit and healthy. And you go to the gym, it's not like you do a rep of something and you're
Right.
like, I'm suddenly jacked and shredded.
Right.
So you can think of, this is like your mental gym. When you do mindfulness, you're doing the reps and you're going to see the benefits as you progress onwards.
You know what? Actually, I'm going to share a little moment of wisdom here that
All
I've
right,
heard
drop
through
it.
my practices. It's the fact that it's called practice, right? Practicing meditation is that nobody's ultimately perfect at it. It really is about showing up and it's about practicing every time you do it. So I actually found that pretty fascinating when I heard it for the first time and wanted to share that here.
Love it. And from clinical point of view, it's as simple as that mindfulness does work. There is 40 years of evidence to support that. And what is really cool is that for many people, AI may be the first door into a practice that meaningfully improves their well being. the goal is not to stay with AI indefinitely. It's like AI will help you to build the skill, explore different techniques, find your way to do mindfulness in a way that speaks to you the most. So use the technology, folks, for mindfulness. It's such a good fit. Try the prompt from this episode.
Amazing. I found this episode really helpful, even having tried meditation many times before. I feel like I learned a lot. I hope all of you did as well. And again, if you're enjoying our content, please leave us a review. It's really helpful to get this content to other people who will find it helpful. So please don't forget. And just before you go, take a deep breath in and a breath out. And we will see you in the next episode. Thanks for joining us today. Just a quick reminder before you go, this episode is educational and not a substitute for professional care, and listening does not create a therapist-client relationship. If you are in immediate danger or at risk of harming yourself or someone else, call your local emergency number or contact a crisis line right away. All right, we'll see you in the next episode.